everybody. Before we kick this thing off today, I want to give a quick reminder. Email us at podcast, singular, not plural, podcast at nationalland.com. Tell us the subjects that you want to hear us talk about, the people that you want us to talk to, and if you have somebody that you think that we should talk to, let us know. Make the introduction. Or if you have a story that you think we need to hear, maybe you had a fantastic hunting adventure and you think that you would like to say that on a podcast, completely open to the idea. I think that would be actually very fun. We haven't had one like that, but I would love to get one. So email us, podcast at nationalland.com. We would love to hear from you. All right, so let's kick this thing off. This is episode 105 for the National Land Realty Podcast, where we discuss all things land. Our goal here is to inform, educate, and entertain those of you who own land or are interested in the buying and selling of land throughout the United States. My name is Mac Christian, and I'm the Chief Marketing Officer here for National Land Realty. I'll be your host for this episode. Now, let's cue the Barry White music. I'm not going to sing Barry White. You're going to have to do that in your imagination, and we don't have the copyright paid off for that. So, we're going to do without the Barry White music. How do turkeys know when mating season starts? Well, if you already know the answer to that, please stay quiet and don't spoil it for the rest of the listeners. For those of you that don't know, like myself, turkeys, like deer, elk, and most other wildlife, have a defined mating season at the same time each year. Actually, the only animals that I could find that don't have a designated mating season are the Golden Spiny Mouse, the Tree Kangaroo, the Musk Shrew, and the long-thumbed frog, and a short list of others, but those names were the most fun. Today, we find out how turkeys time their mating season so accurately, what changes in their behavior, and why some turkeys start their struts off a little early. Now, sit back and enjoy. So I'm inserting this little clip in here because I get to edit these things after I release them, but I forgot to mention even who we're talking with today, and I'll edit this back into the front of the podcast. We're talking today with Jason Lupardus, who is the CEO, the newly appointed CEO for Turkeys for Tomorrow, one of the proud partners that we have here at National Land Realty. And I made sure I wanted to mention that because he was newly moved into that position of CEO. And it's just a special little note in here to congratulate him. We think he's earned it, and he's an excellent partner. We love the guy. Congratulations on your new role. Okay, I'm here with Jason Lupardus with Turkeys for Tomorrow, and I got to throw down your new title, right? CEO?
Oh man, yeah, I do have a new title. Thank you for that. I don't know why these guys just decided let's just let him run with it. So it's been good, man. We have so many good people working with us, just like you guys, and great staff, and we've expanded our board a little bit, and so. Man, I'm just fortunate to have so many doggone good people around me. It makes it easier for me, right?
I love it. I love being able to congratulate you for that. I think it's well deserved. CEO of Turkeys for Tomorrow, and so we're here today. Well, first of all, clarify topic. We're going to talk about the photo period for turkeys, and I'm going to ask a lot of questions about turkeys in general. And we're just going to hope Jason has the answers here. And I'm going to try to take him off guard. I'm going to ask him.
Oh boy.
Yeah. We're going to get into it a little bit. I'm going to try to fool you a little bit. But first of all, I just want you, for anybody listening that hasn't heard you talk to us before, tell us a little bit about your background, how you got to Turkeys for Tomorrow, and how you got to where you are now.
Yeah, sure thing, man. Once again, thank you for having me on. Jason Lupardus. Been with Turkeys for Tomorrow just over a year, and our organization is just a little over 3.5, going on 4 years old right now, which is remarkable. We're moving very fast and furious. My background truly is I cut my teeth as a wildlife biologist / forester, grabbed a couple of degrees in my state that I claim at times, Tennessee, UT Knoxville, go Orange. We're still getting beat. We did win something this year, though. So I'll leave it at that. But no, that's my background. I've worked for a state agency before. I've worked with some other nonprofits. And literally, man, this is the kind of career where you don't feel like you're working because you just love what you do every day. And, man, I've been just very blessed to get to do something I'm passionate about. And, yeah, I got this sickness. It's called turkeys, okay? And so for some reason, I have to chase spring every year. And honestly, fall is just around the corner. And yeah, I may do a little fall turkey hunting as well. It's in my blood.
It's a it's it's one of those unique areas that the people that get into turkey hunting, it becomes an obsession very, very quickly. And it's like it rivals all other things. And it seems like people just fall into niches, right? Like some people are pronghorn, like they love pronghorn, or some people love whitetail or elk or whatever it is. But like you get into something and it's just your thing.
It is, but I'm going to have to be honest with you. For most people that have never experienced the bird coming in like a wild individual, gobbling, where you can almost feel its breath go through your body, and your arms tingle, and when they get gutturally close, and you just hear this drumming noise, you're like, hey, has somebody got the radio on, or what is that? And it's wrecking your mind, man. When all these crazy things happen when you're out turkey hunting, all of a sudden you're like, I may have loved pronghorn hunting, or I may have liked whitetail hunting, but this turkey hunting, it's a whole new level. And so some people have like, well, I've seen it, it looks cool, or maybe I've just sat in a blind, and nothing against blind hunters, I've done it before too. But when you get that up close and personal, like when I've had them walk where I can almost grab them by the head, it is something else. And so those are the mornings and afternoons and middle of the days that I love to experience, and just crazy gobbling, crazy action. And then half the time I usually have somebody sitting beside me. So it's like double the pleasure, double the fun, right?
Absolutely. And yeah. So we have our spring season, and I didn't even go this year. I have to be honest.
Oh Lord! Okay, we got to end this now.
And the worst part of it is my mom has acreage up in the mountains, and she has a group of, I think, 40 birds that are eating out of her backyard. It's one of those. That's nice. You got people climbing on mountaintops and they're in your yard. It always happens like that. Your residential animals are always like your neighborhood.
Absolutely.
They're there to infuriate you.
Oh yeah.
So tell me, okay, so we were talking topics, right? And
Yep.
You were working with my digital specialist, Liv Winstead, who is amazing. But you guys sent over the topic of Photoperiod. And I'm just going to own it. I don't know anything about turkey Photoperiod. And so I just want to start from 101 level and just ask you, what is it?
Okay, so before I even go there, I want to give kudos to your helper there, right? Because not many people may realize this, but she is truly known as the Wapiti Whisperer, right?
Yes.
Yes. So not many people may know that. And so I hope when she hears this, she gets a big grin, because I would love to see her on the stage calling again. Mouth calling with none of these things, right? That I got behind me. And so, yeah, she was really good at it. So anywho, just want to throw that in real quick.
Yeah, she told me she could bugle like an elk. And I was like, okay, you got to read? She's like, no.
Yeah, no.
You're just gonna scream at me? And she's like, yes.
I think a future episode would have her on as a caller. I'm just saying,
just doing the call. Because the first thought is like, well, where's the read? And then the second part is, this isn't going to go well. Like I'm about to get screamed at. Then she pulled it off. I'm like, that was very elky.
I didn't mean to take us down that rabbit trail, but while we were there, I figured we'd do a little bit of chasing, right? And we'll get back on the trail here. But no, Photoperiod is pretty interesting. Photoperiod basically impacts really all of us, even you and me, right? And so it's just how much sunlight on the body does amazing things. And so at different times of the year, it really triggers hormone responses in the body, releases certain chemicals, sometimes endorphins for us, etc. I don't know if you've ever done the Alaska thing where it's been dark for a long time, and then you finally see some daylight, and you're like, oh Lord, this is good. I don't know how they do it, but but it triggers the body, and then it's just like, okay, it's really okay outside. So it's the same similar effect with many critters, including turkeys. There's been some fantastic research done on different animal species where they've literally put them almost in like a lab environment, and they basically induced artificial sunlight on them. And what they found is, because a lot of people always ask, why is it the springtime that turkeys breed at that time? Why is that? Why do deer want to breed when it is usually October, November? And so they put these critters in the laboratory, artificial lighting them up. And then when they got to specific time frames of light over certain windows of time, days, weeks, the chemical responses hit, and then all of a sudden breeding activity hits. And so for turkeys, it's that, what we like to see in the springtime is those gobblers, they start gobbling. They're being very active. You hear the hens, yep, 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 yelping back. And so it's that chemical response that's triggering the body. It says it is that time. And it's a one time a year deal for most species. And so it's pretty amazing. So the cool thing about what's coming up right now is summer's starting to wane. Bring home fall, please. Cool air. We need that big time, especially here in the Southeast. But as that comes and we have less sunlight, we're starting to get back to a very similar time of the year as springtime. With the amount of sunlight that's going to be on the ground. And so you start seeing these responses in these flocks. So right now, these hens, these mother hens that take care of us, right? They're out there with their flocks of mixed birds, males and females, poults. They're really juveniles right now. Most of these birds, they're probably, they look like a big chicken at the moment. Hopefully, if they were born at the right time. We have some that may renest in variable sizes of birds. But at the end of August, going into September, what we typically see is the broods that we're going to see that's going to truly survive into the wintertime. And so now what happens is these male and females, as these chemical responses start kicking, they start separating out into groups. And so what you'll see is a lot of these individual flocks with this mother hen. Let's say she has 6 birds with her. 3 of them are males, 3 of them are females. And so when she comes up and she gets with the next female, and maybe another female has 2 or 3, then what you start seeing is these subflocks starting to form. And this is all due to the photoperiod, how much sunlight's coming down, these chemical responses are hitting, and the males are like, whoo, come on, I want to get on over here with you, and let's check this out. And so these males start getting together, and you know how males are. We get together and we start talking a little trash, and we kind of get pushing around. I do this better than you, and so these birds are doing that, and what they're doing is they're building hierarchy. And so the males are going, "Hey, I'm kind of the boss of this group." And so you got these different males come together, and you find out who's the dominant bird. You start hearing a lot more calling. You start seeing a lot of strutting activity. But these birds, they're not doing it for breeding right now. They're still young. It's kind of like teenagers, right? And you're trying to find your way. And same thing's going on with the females. So these females and males in their groups are making a lot more noise. They're being very active. And so we hear this from people every year. It's these early deer hunters that are out, especially archery hunters. They're out and they're going, man, what are these turkeys doing? I didn't think they gobbled in the fall. And man, I saw one strutting yesterday. And man, there's a bunch out in the field and they're just yelping away. And I'm like, well, that's what's going on. They're kind of learning the ways of the world. So it's all kind of practice mode as these groups start kind of dividing out. And so it's a really interesting time of the year with how much sunlight comes down is impacting really the behavior of these animals and where they go and what they want to do.
So it's very similar behavior to what you see in early rut, where you start seeing the head butting and that kind of thing, and the antler locking that you'll see, like, or even it almost looks like play fighting before they really get into it. It's that early period where they're trying things on and establishing, okay, you're a lot bigger and stronger than me. I'm not probably gonna like beat you. So it is that sort of thing.
That's it.
is exactly okay. So what role does So the light plays a role in terms of activating sort of the mechanism, right? And so there's a perfect ratio of light dark that the animal experiences that triggers this stage. And this is I'm sitting here talking like I know it or something. I have no idea. This is the first time I've ever heard this information.
Dr. Mack, I love this. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, this is like I'm like, wow, okay, so and it makes sense that they can time it like that because you hit that perfect ratio. Like, why do a specific breed always rut within a couple weeks of where they always rut? And it's regardless of crap weather, good weather, doesn't matter. They're going to go at the same time because it's the light ratio. And that's now I'm in. I love this.
Yeah, and it's pretty interesting, man. I mean, like with deer, like, there's all these deer reintroductions done across the U.S., just as with turkeys. And so here's some more fun facts for you. And some people have went out of the way with deer more so than turkeys to really establish these almost looks like rut maps, okay, in all these states. So the Southeast had a ton of deer that were reintroduced when deer numbers were at all-time lows, right? And so you can go because these deer had evolved in a certain area of the United States for a long time. They get triggered at a different time. So I'll give you an example. Like, let's pick out Georgia randomly. So around the coast of Georgia, on the East Coast, it's one of the few places that intact deer herd remained from ages ago. That rut time is typically in October, mid-Octoberish, okay? Throughout most of the state, in pockets, et cetera, from deer brought in other southern states further north, we see a traditional rut in November. And then we have some deer that were brought in from other areas down toward the kind of the western southwest portion of Georgia that don't hit rut till December and or January. Okay. And so you have variables in place, but it's because from an evolutionary standpoint, we're getting deep here. We had these deer that have been in place for hundreds of years. And then we got a deer that's been moved. And so that genetic framework of that animal is structured like, okay, when I get this much sunlight, it triggers. And so their trigger point's different. And so it kind of blows my mind. But we also see this kind of similar with turkeys. Turkeys have, I'd say, almost washed out a little bit more because turkeys tend to move and cover a lot more ground in general. And so you could see pockets of birds in states, and in one state where these birds are really actively gobbling, breeding, maybe a little more aggressively or a little bit more in front of other areas of the state. But once again, it comes down to photoperiod and what's triggering them to do that. And so with birds being reintroduced from all over, a huge success story, right? Where we see those same kind of crazy pockets where some birds are coming in a little bit later than others from a breeding standpoint. And so most of our seasons that are structured in the springtime are set to protect all of those areas so that the majority of the birds are bred well before hunting season opens up. So, yeah, it's pretty amazing, man. Photoperiod and maybe some evolutionary ecology in place here.
So if you have birds and definitely with relocation, but as they move around, and if they're triggering at different times, does that keep populations segregated where you might want the population to build up, but they can't because they're triggering at different times for mating season?
I think there's theoretically it could be like when critters were first reintroduced, but now because you have, for example, like a wild turkey male, he may when he decides to go on a walkabout, or we can call it a flyabout, in the springtime, he may disperse and go 5, 6, 8 miles away. Western states, we've seen birds, GPS birds, go 20 miles away, set up shop. And so if we had birds that were reintroduced in different places, that may have been from different areas, so to speak, where peak breeding may be off by weeks, you're getting this intermixing. And so with most of these reintroductions being done 70s, 80s into the 90s, we're kind of past that point where we have so much mixing. Yep.
I was going to say, it's the chest pounding season for guys. They'll adjust.
Yeah. Think about it, dude. Once a year. Once a year.
Um, they get the testosterone flowing. They'll fix it. They'll adjust to it.
They basically wing beat pretty hard. They're like, come here, come here, come here, come here, come
Exactly.
here.
Exactly.
Something like that.
I like. Oh.
Yeah, exactly,
That whole
exactly.
thing. So in the period you mentioned they start making racket. What what is that? Why are they? You know, why do turkeys gobble? I guess like you talked about the noise they start making. What's the purpose behind it? Besides, is it just a hierarchy thing, or is it play another role?
Well, this time of year, it's really a hierarchy thing. And what you also notice is you may have a group of gobblers together. For example, let's say there's a six pack of us all sitting on the limb. And what they're doing is you typically see the dominant bird gobble. And oftentimes the other birds will stay really quiet no matter what. And sometimes it's a hierarchy thing. Sometimes it's actually a territorial. So when other critters make some kind of sound, whether it's an owl, big old or a crow or whatever that may be, sometimes a coyote, sometimes an elk bugle will set a bird off. And a lot of people think, and this may be true, it's not really proven, but it's that kind of pitch. And that pitch is a certain frequency sometimes that we can't really understand as people, but when certain pitches are hit, those birds tend to respond. And I think about this at various times of year with people hunting, and they've used all types of instruments to get birds to gobble, even slamming a car door, right? But there's some kind of pitch to that triggers that bird to go, hey, I'm the big boss here. And so you get some of that. You're also at this time of the year, right around the corner, these birds are really just figuring out what the heck is a gobble. And so birds imprint, wild turkey imprint off of, the predecessor, right? And so they're listening to Uncle Joe over here and old Mark on the limb, and they're going, all right, that's how he's gobbling. They're really mimicking those gobbles. And so you'll hear a bunch of birds practicing that gobble sound. So the younger birds are trying to figure it out. So you hear a lot of broken kind of gobbles that try to gobble, and it really just doesn't come out good. You're like, oh my God, it sounds like a flat tire or something, right? Um, so you have all of these things going on, but some of it's also some of that practice time. You're a teenager and you're looking over and going, man, there's something about these girls I kind of like, but I don't understand what to do yet. But I think I need to talk to them. It's some of that. And so basically, this is what's coming right around the corner. And it makes it a really exciting time to be out because the woods just kind of come alive. There's a lot of sounds, a lot of activities. You see birds coming together. I've watched one year I was up here and I watched like 10 different groups of birds fly off basically a bluff. And they're all in these subgroups out in the field. And literally there are about 125 turkeys in the field. And you could tell, you could see some of these little gobbler groups, they're coming and just like bumping together, like, nah, we better than you. It was almost like gangs coming together. I mean, it's crazy. And then the hens were doing the same. And then you'd see everybody kind of break off finally and go their separate ways. And then eventually by the end of the day, they're coming back to key roosts out there back there. So some of this is to let other birds know where they are. There's a whole array of sounds that birds make, but that gobble is usually it's truly for breeding, but it also shows hierarchy and strength.
Is it so? There's been a few conversations we've had because we had Mike Chamberlain also talk to us about just turkey behavior. And obviously this time of year, mating is the primary driver, but it seems like just in turkeys in general, that the number one driver that I've heard discussed is just hierarchy in general, to where it drives kind of everything that they do. And because what we were talking about then was how, if a sort of like alpha male dies, the younger males will just keep attacking the body, just like, hey, I got you, like get up.
Yep.
It's my turf now. And
Yep.
so they just kind of like automatically function on that. Like they're not registering alive or not alive. They're just registering like you were the big dog and you're not moving right now. So obviously there's room. It seems like that's just a continuous thing with the bird. Is that on the right track, or is that?
Yeah, right. At this time of year, yeah, it's hierarchy time always. I think that's a year-round process. So yeah, a lot of people experience seeing birds perish, at the end of a gun barrel or something else, and especially if there's a group of birds around. And so many people have gotten to see this up close and personal, where that bird's down, and all of a sudden, that's an opportunity for hierarchy and for breeding. You see this with almost all wildlife species when there's a chance to step over, especially if you're talking about harems of animals, right? And I had to throw that in because I got elk on my mind too. And so, when you got a bull elk very similar that has a bunch of cows out there that he's breeding, if he shows weakness or if a younger male tries to slip in, he's going to try to push it away. They may fight. If he gets hurt, one of those males will come in and almost it's just like they're going to jab him while he's on the ground. But that is really almost to showcase strength to the other ones. And so with a turkey doing that, at least is what we think is that when they are like kicking the guy that's down, everyone else is like, oh man, brother Mac over there just kicked him in the dirt. Man, he's kind of the boss now. And so I think it's that perception almost. And so all of a sudden they assume, and they're just kind of standing the ground like, hey, I just took the alpha down. Now I'm the one in charge. So yeah, it's kind of interesting dynamics. And it's really interesting to see hens take a similar stature. I've watched hens come in when in like decoy situations, or when we've called a different hen into the springtime, especially, and we've had a dominant hen come in and go into strut, just like a gobbler, to display, hey, And I've watched dominant hen strut and then get aggressive and actually fight another hen if they thought that, hey, you're stepping in on my man, right? So it's pretty interesting what people will do. I mean, I don't know if my wife would do that for me, but it'd be pretty cool to see it.
Yeah, because I mean, and like I said, there's a lot of things that I on the podcast that I'll know or have insight on or have some knowledge. And turkey is one of those, like, I've just not done a lot of turkey hunting. But the obvious parallel that I get is elk, like the behavior of bugling for dominance or going into a fight to establish dominance, or like you brought up when the big guy gets either dies or looks weak or is getting a little more feeble, like the young ones will come in to establish that to get access to the females. It's just a constant thing. And then but does do so the question, I guess, would be, do turkeys follow this similar behavior of solitary throughout the year and then grouping up during mating season? And are the males grouping up the same way? Like, what's the behavior there? Like, are they dispersing? Are they alone? What's sort of the behaviors there?
So it's a little bit different, and even this time of year, and because of the size of the bird, you have to think about that and what that bird has to deal with on a day to day. It has issues with aerial predators trying to eat it, mammalian predators trying to eat it, and then predators like me trying to eat it. And so they're always on the lookout. So they're not that most dominant species out there. So one of the really survival characteristics of turkeys and many birds that flock together is a lot of eyes is really good to kind of save you. And so these gobblers, they group together. So they don't go off solitary like some larger species do, but they'll group together for protection, really. And so that also will bleed over into that dominance we're talking about. And so, but in order for there to be a group of folks, if everyone, we can talk military for a second. If everyone in the army decided we go in each direction, but we need to go to the north, and that's the people we got to fight and climb the hill on, then we all need a leader to get us there. And so it's the same thing with turkeys. They are really looking at who's going to kind of lead them going back to the roost or away from a threat or whatever that is, or maybe even standing up to something when there's a chance to kind of protect that flock. And so it's still flock dynamics. It's just subgroups. Okay. So there may be a larger flock of birds that, let's say 25 birds in the fall. The birds tend to flock together much more in the fall than the spring. They start breaking up into smaller subgroups because of breeding activity. Right now, they're coming together and forming larger flocks in order to determine dominance, which way we're going to go. Because right now, it's mixed. You got a lot of males, females together because the hens have been off by themselves. They're bringing up their brood. Now you got young juveniles coming in. Then you still have mature birds. You have these mature gobblers that are off by themselves. You have some hens that are grouped up that basically didn't breed or couldn't breed or were unsuccessful breeding, and they're kind of grouped up. So everyone's kind of coming together for the party. So the party's about to start. Photoperiod's kind of triggered these responses. They're coming together. They're going to group up, especially looking for resources. Mother Nature's pretty damn harsh on everything, right? Especially as you go further north. Wintertime is tough. And so they're actually out there, working as a group to find resources, to find food. And so once some birds find food, it's like, hey, this is where we're going to go. They bring the flock in there and they just, they're hitting it. So it gets almost very complicated, right, with how Mother Nature works in this web to bring it together. But this time of the year, it's pretty phenomenal. And if you're a fall turkey hunter, we used to have a lot of fall turkey hunting in the past, and some states they've pushed back because turkey decline, just concerned about losing any more turkeys. But in some states that still have very active fall turkey hunting, it used to be what Thanksgiving was all about, right? You go out in fall, get you a bird, and you got a great Thanksgiving bird for you. But there's still several states. I think the state of Virginia probably has more fall turkey hunters than any other state in the nation.
I was gonna say, I feel like you just described high school in the '90s, where you get like one click over in the corner, like "Get out of here, nerd!"
I don't think that's ended, by the way. From what I've heard from my kids, like, yeah, everybody's grouped up. I'm like, Lord, some things don't ever change.
it's the animal in us, right? Like it's a very your every species is geared up to identify outliers and find like kinds, and
that's right,
or follow dominant behavior or those kind of things. It's just like it's an ingrained sort of thing that patterns in. So as the animals sort of they get together in a large group, and as they establish sort of the order, then they'll branch off into smaller groups of during the mating season. What happens to them? How does the photoperiod affect them as they disperse, or like it turns them off and then they start moving away? What's sort of the behavioral patterns that we see at that point?
Yeah, so we got this window where things start to act much like spring, right? Where you get a lot more activity, a lot more vocalization, the whole 9 yards. And so we're going to go through a little window that's going to last for weeks to about a month-ish. And then after that, things start kind of settling back down where the activity, the amount of gobbling and day to day, just a series of yelps and different things the hens are doing, you just don't hear as much of that throughout the day. You still hear it in the mornings or right there in the evening as birds are on the roost. Birds are waking up. They're very vocal, talking to each other, letting each other know where they are, and then they hit the ground and go. But during this little period, you hear a lot of vocalization throughout the day. And so this fall turkey season where people still fall turkey hunt, it can be a very exciting time. I mean, I've harvested a few birds over time here in Kentucky, watch gobblers strutting, and acting just like a spring hunt, harvesting birds in Michigan, same way. And it's just, north to south, they act the same. They're getting a little bit antsy, and it makes for some really exciting times in the woods to get out there and really get to call the birds and do something that you really look forward to in the springtime. So this behavior, it's a nice window of time to have some fun, get to hear a lot of vocalization, see some action, and then for guys and gals that want to learn more about birds and turkeys, I'll be honest with you, just being out listening is so key. Like you can be maybe you're just a big deer hunter, but you're thinking about turkey hunting. Okay. I would say if you had some time to be anywhere near a turkey roost in the fall, do it because you will learn so much about what turkeys do, how they talk to each other, what really gets them going. And then honestly, you can take that kind of knowledge into the springtime and be pretty doggone proficient at getting on birds.
That's I was gonna say where we do our spring bear hunts. There's just an enormous amount of turkeys there. Now the hard part is it's vertical mountainside cliff faces kind of area. So it because the turkey season is then, but you can't get within a few hundred yards of it. Like they have good eyesight with it, but we'll sit there on the mountainsides because you can see across the valley. It's right across. You can almost reach out, touch the other side of the valley. It's that vertical. But you get to watch the behavior exactly like what you're talking about, where they kind of have the standoffs, and you get one that's louder than the others and puffs up and pushes them off. Wanted to ask you about the photo period because I think we kind of discussed it, but I don't know if it was clear enough. Is with the light, is it reception of light on skin because the head is bare, or is it reception of light within the eyeball, and its effect on the brain and the time? Like, is there has that been differentiated? Like, what about the light is it needs to go into the eye, or if you I don't know.
That's a great question. I don't think it's necessarily through the eye, but I think it's a combination of so much sunlight experienced throughout the day, right? And so it's really built into the brain, and so it's not only what's perceived through the eye, but it's also perceived through heat, and so all of that really triggers things. And then you have these minor activities as well that can trigger these other serious behavioral expressions of birds and other wildlife. And that's really temperature. And so the photo period really gets everything cranking going in these kind of key windows. But then if temperature fluxes up, down, depending on what time of year it is, that may influence something where that peak days or week may move forward or backwards by days. It's not by months, but it's a soft swing. So, for example, if Mother Nature decided like, hey, cold weather's coming and we get hit hard, photoperiods trigger these kind of chemical reactions where the bird through temperature, sensation, amount of sunlight each day, it's a kind of a brain trigger of hey, it's time to do something. I kind of get that good feeling. And
Yeah.
so, but now let's say a blizzard hits. All of a sudden, that thought of like dominance, et cetera, may change to survival mode. And so now you get this soft trigger response where the bird may shift and go, okay, we need to be looking for food and cover. Like it's cold. We need to be in some kind of evergreen tree. And you'll see birds, their behaviors change, much like other species, just like us, man. Like,
Yeah.
you think about it, it seems almost common sense, right?
Yeah. It is like,
like
because there's obvious parallels there between, like, what turkeys do and elk, but there's different little behavioral things. And I think I don't know about other people, but I view birds as a little more autonomic. Like they're a little bit like a pre-programmed mechanism. Like they're gonna do what they do. Like it's like they come out of the egg. Like this is what I do, and there some of their adaptations there, but like you're not gonna see them, or you're not gonna perceive them as I don't want to say adaptive, but uh capable of adjusting, I guess, like a mammal would. So you'll see that like with deer and elk, where like there's the photo period sets them off, and then the weather changes and they adjust immediately, and you'll see ruts shift weeks based on weather patterns and stuff. But knowing that turkeys do the same thing, it's like, okay, it's all the things.
We've been, I think we've all been programmed pretty similarly. We just look different, sound a lot different. So it's amazing to see what that is in turkeys as opposed to deer or maybe an alligator or whatever, right? I mean, it's all these mechanisms change. I mean, heck, I was down in Louisiana and we're out, had a meeting, maybe did a little fishing, but we're out and these gators were going into that breeding mode, right? They were rumbling and grumbling, but photoperiod, man. I mean, it's daylight, it's so much sunshine, temperatures get right, the body says it's time. And then you see the water just bubbling and waking. And so it's pretty amazing. I mean, everything comes down to sunshine. If we didn't have sunshine for 2 or 3 days, think about it, man. I mean, just even people get grumpy, man. Just like, man, I need some sunshine in my life. I need a little bit of vitamin D, and so it's the same thing. I mean, it really is. And you put somebody in a dark room for like a week, or don't get them out of the office, man. It's just, man, they're rough. They're rough people to be around. So sunshine is good.
This is what I love about doing this podcast with people from all over the US because you just triggered an absolutely new fear in my life. I live in Idaho, man. The idea of a breeding season for gators is probably the most terrifying thing I've ever heard in my life. Like, I would rather jump rope with a rattlesnake than be anywhere near a body of water with gators. Like, if it's breeding season, just imagining like the dominant behavior with no, no.
It
And,
sounds like I need to take you on a gator hunt, man. We need to break you in.
oh, on that note, I'm 100% in. If it's breeding season, no, I'm not getting in that water. You can have that all to yourself. I'll throw you in the water and paddle my way.
Yeah, it's I mean, that's a whole different beast, right? But yeah, these old dinosaurs, so to speak, they're pretty special in themselves. But yeah, all these species, no matter what, photoperiod trigger thing. I mean, you think about even vegetation, right? Less sunlight, and then all of a sudden things shut down. Your trees start shutting down. They go into dormancy mode. It's that time of year where acorn mass production is going to get heavy, and so once again, all these changes are going on. It's all based on sunlight. I mean, when you really break it down, it's based on sunlight. Less sunlight, tree says, "Hey, I'm about done. Time to shut it down." And so when that sunlight period hits, the tree even knows it starts shriveling back and it's done. Phloem stops. It dumps everything into the roots. Whatever's left up top fades out, and it gets ready for the next year until sunlight hits again at the right timing, so to speak, with a little bit of weather involved, right? So once again, might have a little bit earlier green up or not, depending on temperatures. So I mean, it's pretty cool when you think about it all. It really all comes down to photoperiod, everything we do.
Excellent. Well, I'm still
Food for thought.
I'm still thinking about the gators. I didn't know they did stuff like that. It's terrifying. No.
Dude, you don't want to see like it's too far away to grab, but I got one of those big noggins, right?
Yeah.
From a hunt I did years ago in Georgia, a big 12-footer, and yeah, it's like I put like and it's one of those Euro mounts, right? So I did it myself. It's just a skull and it's open.
Yeah.
So you see all the teeth, but I took a deer skull, like a little buck, a little 4-point buck, and stuck it in there just so everyone's like, oh my God, they're huge. I'm like, yeah, gators get pretty big.
A gator hunt is definitely on my list. That's definitely a thing. But do you hunt? I hope the hunt's not during mating season. That's
No. It's actually for most of these southeastern states that have a gator season, it's coming in about right now, and so it's an interesting time. It's usually nighttime hunting, usually with a spotlight, so it's totally different. You get to see things that no one else gets to see because everybody's in bed.
Yeah, that sounds bad. I'm in. All right, man. Love it. Photo period is a topic that was, like I said, that was new to me as far as turkeys go. So that's good knowledge, man. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
So tell everybody about Turkeys for Tomorrow, how people can contribute to Turkeys for Tomorrow and sort of what y'all work with?
Sure. Appreciate the opportunity and a great discussion as always, man. We love partnering with y'all. But yeah, Turkeys for Tomorrow, we're a 501c3 nonprofit. You can find us at turkeysfortomorrow.org online, very easy. And we're on pretty much all the major social media platforms. Just look for us in our logo right here. And it's very easy to see. We're very focused on basically saving the wild turkey using science-based solutions for long-term sustainability. It's that simple. We're based on science and what we need to do to make sure that we never have a silent spring. And so we have a large group of quote unquote turkey hunters that are truly our citizen scientists that's kind of helping us stand up things. And we're focused on research and trying to do habitat work and everything else it takes to make sure that we continue to have turkeys throughout the year. So that's us in a nutshell.
Excellent. And if someone is interested in donating to your cause?
Go online. You can click a button. We take all forms of payment anytime. But honestly, we also would gladly take your time, your talents, and if you want to send treasures, we're in for that too. So we appreciate that. We have events in place. We have local chapters kind of emerging everywhere. We just actually had our first event here in my home state in Kentucky. A new chapter form and went from formation to an event in less than 2 months. And we had a sold out event with 350 people in attendance. And so very fantastic night, and we are growing everywhere. So look forward to seeing hopefully some of y'all down the road in one of the many states we're doing work in.
Excellent. Jason, thank you as always, man. It's always good talking to you. So thank you very much.
Yeah, appreciate you.
This concludes episode 105 for the National Land Realty Podcast, discussing turkey photoperiod and mating season with Jason Lupardus, CEO of Turkeys for Tomorrow. You can learn more about land ownership and the buying and selling of land at nationalland.com.